Hello everybody, welcome back to Orlando, Florida. Today we're going to talk about a golf legend by the name of Payne Stewart. Now if that name doesn't sound familiar to you, back in the late 1990s he was a really good golfer, and he was at the top of his class. He won 3 major championships. One of them he won not too long before he passed away tragically at the age of 42. Now he was somebody that everybody loved. He was somebody that the photographers loved. He always was known for wearing something unique. He was known to have the biggest wardrobe of anybody on the tour, and he liked a lot of the retro throwbacks to like the older golfers of the 1930s, 1940s. He definitely had a style all of his own, but his life was cut tragically short because of a horrible plane crash that I'm going to tell you about. Now, when you think of Florida cemeteries, this may be what you think of. There's palm trees, Spanish moss, lots of lizards, and you just never know what else is in here. Now, this tragic story starts on October 25th of 1999. Payne Stewart had chartered a Learjet, and it was a business jet that was scheduled to fly from Orlando International Airport just a few miles away from here, and he had 5 other people with him. There were 2 pilots, there were a couple business associates, and they were heading to Dallas. Now, early in the flight, the aircraft was climbing, it was ascending, and it was on autopilot at the time, but it ended up losing cabin pressure early on in the flight, and that is a very tragic thing in itself, because you would think that normally when people on board a flight are incapacitated that the flight just doesn't stop, but it was on autopilot, so the flight kept on going. Now, the jet kept on ascending after the point where it was supposed to have leveled out, and when it didn't make its turn on course towards Dallas, they radioed in and they were asking if everything was okay. And at the very beginning things were okay, but that didn't last too awful long. Air traffic controllers instructed the pilot to climb and maintain flight level around 39,000 feet, and they responded to this, and that was the last known audio transmission from the airplane. And it occurred while the aircraft was passing through about 23,000 feet. Now, the next attempt to contact the aircraft occurred 6 minutes and 20 seconds later, about 14 minutes after departure. And at that point, the controller's message went unacknowledged. So they tried again. There was still no response from the pilot, and they ended up sending out an F-16 test pilot, and basically they caught up to the airplane and they were trying to figure out what was going on with this plane, if they were just not receiving signal or what happened. And basically what they discovered when they caught up to the jet is that the windows on the cockpit appeared to be iced over. So the plane was on autopilot. This became national news. It was on every network, and this is something that most of us probably remember happening, but sadly everybody on board had passed away, and they were on a plane on autopilot, and they were supposed to be heading to Dallas, but the plane ended up veering in a different direction, and it ended up going down in Mina, South Dakota. There was a field. They tried several times to intercept the flight, but nothing was going to work. The plane ended up going down basically when the jet ran out of fuel. So it's a very sad thing and a very tragic end. It's one of those kind of things that probably shouldn't have happened, but very sad and very unfortunate. But Payne Stewart is laid to rest right alongside this lagoon, and he is the only one over here. In loving memory of William Payne Stewart. January 30th, 1957 to October 25th, 1999. Only 42 years old. The champion of our hearts, we will love you forever. There is a nice image of him here, and it says, I have set the Lord continually before me. He is at my right hand, I will not be shaken. Psalm 16:8. There is a flag here. Now this is called Doctor Phillips Cemetery. There are quite a few graves over on the other side of this, but from this side on, this appears to be the only grave site here. But he has a very peaceful place. And I mean, a golf legend. He lived not too far away from here, just right over by Lake Windermere. And if you know much about the area in Orlando, that's where a lot of the famous people, a lot of the upper crust lives. And his final home was there. And they actually just sold that house about 2 years ago on the market for a little over $7 million. It was his widow that sold the home. But I mean, very, very sad thing, because that's one of those things that, you know, routine flights like that are supposed to go smoothly without a hitch. Everything's supposed to be fine. And this day it just wasn't. You know, the saddest thing is that Payne Stewart was at the top of his game when he passed away. 42 years old, and he had just won a major championship, and who knows how big his career would have gotten had he lived and made it past this. You know, he could have easily become, you know, one of the greatest to ever live. But we'll really never know. But this one is going to be a little bit shorter than some of the average videos. But I happened to be not too far away from this, and I kind of remembered, hey, Payne Stewart is not too far away from here. So I wanted to stop by, pay my respects, and share this one with you. But hopefully you enjoyed this one. Hopefully you learned a little something about the life of Payne Stewart. And yeah, it's always kind of sad when you do stories and read up on some of the information on people who passed away so young, and, you know, just such a senseless tragedy. But thanks so much for watching, and we'll catch you on the next video. Take care, everybody.